Another interesting thing in this relatively the same time period, like 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000 BC, is that there's these ancient cultures in Korea, an ancient culture in Korea making what we call dolmens. And a dolmen is like a two-sided structure, or you know what I mean, like a post-lintel structure of two rocks holding up a big rock. And this is really fascinating because these were considered, these were tombs. This is where people were buried. And what's really interesting about these dolmens in Korea is they look a lot like the dolmens that you find in the UK. Let me open up that tab really quick. Sorry, I thought I had this open. Go to images here. So as you can see, these are dolmens that are in the UK, and they're very similar. And these too were also burial sites. Now, the differences between the Korean dolmens and the dolmens found in the UK is that they believe that the dolmens in Korea, as you read in this article, were used for like one tomb for either like a ruler or a significant person in the culture, whereas the dolmens in the UK, that wasn't always the case. Sometimes these would be mass graves. They would find, you know, generations of cremated remains in these dolmens. And I just think these are really interesting structures, and you can still visit them today, both in Korea and in the UK. I don't remember the exact amount of how many dolmens or these ancient Neolithic structures exist in Korea, but in the UK, there's over 3,500 ancient stone sites that you can visit. And I have a map open here. I'll show it to you. It's really fantastic. So this is a map of all the megaliths in the UK. I just think this is a fantastic map. So each one of these red dots is a sign of a site, but it's not just one site. Now watch this. We'll click down here. Come on. This is taking its time to load. But when you click on that red dot, it opens up all these other sites. So it shows you just how many of these megalithic sites there are, both of dolmens and there's these things called freestanding stones or standing stones that they call menhirs, and also hinges and circle stones. So if you visit the UK, I'd encourage you to go to megalithic.co.uk and visit some of these sites. They're just scattered all over the place. Like some of them are in farmers' fields. Some of them you have to hike 10 miles to get back to. Here's a standing stone. This one has an engraving on it. So this is an amazing site. So this kind of shows you that the ancient Neolithic people were really motivated to make these structures. They're not one-offs by any means. And you can see there's a ton up here in Scotland as well, and a ton in Ireland. So I think this is one of my favorite maps because you can click on a red dot and zoom in here, and we'll see all the different standing stones and dolmens. An interesting tidbit: those of you who are interested in C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia, in C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, there's he references a dolmen in almost all of those novels in the Chronicles of Narnia, and this in those novels is the stone table, which plays a key role. The stone table in the Chronicles of Narnia play a key role in the stories and the plot lines. So megaliths, they're amazing. They're not only in Korea, but they're in the UK. In fact, they find these in India. You can find them in Malta. They're found all around the world, and they all were kind of built around the same time period. Let's see if we can look at another one of these. You can play around. I'll add this to the resources on Moodle so you can come back to it. Another civilization that I think is really fascinating is the Norte Chico civilization, and the Norte Chico civilization was in Peru. It's not far from modern day Lima. And what's amazing about the Norte Chico culture is that they built these amazing pyramid complexes, as you can see here. The huge base of the pyramid. Here's kind of a reconstruction of what their pyramid would look like. And they were building these pyramids in about 3000 BC. And this is the same time that the Great Pyramids are starting to be built in Egypt. And, as we know, geographically, these are really far apart. Here's a ruin or kind of the landscape in the mountains where Norte Chico was found. But one thing that stands out to me that I think is really important about the Norte Chico civilization is that they didn't have ceramics and they didn't use imagery. They don't know why, but they didn't use ceramics or imagery in their culture, and all that we have left of their culture is the architecture and some of the stones, and I think they even may have fragments of textiles. But it's really fascinating to think that in Peru in 3000 BC that there was a culture building pyramidal structures, maybe not on the exact same scale as in Egypt, but on a really large scale. And then this is another thing that I think is really interesting. This is their form of writing. The Norte Chicos used knots and textiles to create their language, which I think is really beautiful. Right, on first glance, you wouldn't know that that's a language, or as they're calling it, a proto-writing system from Norte Chico. So Norte Chico is one of those civilizations that a lot of people don't know about because it kind of gets overshadowed by other stories. Then another culture that I'm really fascinated by, or